What's the creepiest urban legend you've ever heard? Well, not exactly an urban legend. But there's a story where I'm from where our school is haunted by a girl. Ever since the school was built, people claimed seeing her in the theater. Long story short, my dad was a teacher at the school and me and my friends would steal his keys and sit in the theater when it was pitch black just to get a glimpse of the girl. Well, they say be careful what you wish for, because one time me and my other two friends went in there and turned on our flashlights on our phones. Next things, I pointed to the stage while having my camera and light on. Noticed my camera was trying to focus on a face, but I couldn't see one. I look up towards the stage and see a little girl with messy hair. I shined the light right on her face and could only see eyes. For some odd reason, as much light as I had on her, I could only see her eyes. I froze with fear because it stared right at me. It took off with absolute inhuman speed across the stage and me and my friend screamed with fear. I will never forget that face, but nobody ever believes me and my friends whenever we tell the story. But I kid you not, it happened, sadly, and coincidentally wasn't recording. I should have been recording, oh well, lol. Girl goes to a club with another female friend. They party through the night and she actually connects with a guy and ends up kissing him, making out. They exchange contacts, but he wants her to go to his place. He gets quite desperate and tries to convince her. Her female friend gets wind of it. Even though he seems alright, she urges they'll part ways for the time being since it's too late and they are all drunk. They leave the club and go to each their own place. The next morning, the girl doesn't feel quite well. While looking in the mirror, she also notices what looks like some form of a rash or herpes around her mouth. She doesn't think much of it but goes to the doctor anyways. The doctor isn't sure what it is exactly and suspects bacteria, viral infection. He takes a tiny sample from her skin and sends it to the lab. About a week later, the doctor calls and wants the girl to come visit him ASAP. He tells her the results are very suspicious, something only really seen from contact with corpses. They are both shocked. The girl tells the doctor about the guy she made out with at a club. After some additional research she did at home, she discovers the guy very recently got arrested on suspicion of killing a girl a couple of weeks ago. They found a dead girl's body at his home under his bed, lying there decomposing. The Mexican pet. A young woman from Southern California, while on a shopping trip to Tijuana, Mexico, noticed a cuddly canine squirming in the gutter. The animal was a tiny chihuahua, struggling for its life, breathing heavily, shivering, barely able to move. Heartbroken, she smuggled her new pet across the border and then struggled to help it regain its strength. The puppy refused to eat any food she offered, and she talked to it, cuddled it, and finally wrapped it in a small blanket and placed it beneath the covers on her bed to sleep beside her all through the night. She kept feeling it to make sure it was okay. In the morning, the tiny pet still seemed sickly. She cuddled and kissed it all morning, but noticed weeping from its eyes, so she brought it to a nearby animal clinic. Handing the weakened animal to the vet on duty, she began to describe all the things she had done to help the tiny creature. The vet immediately asked the women where they had acquired their pet. Learning about her trip, he informed the women that she had adopted not a chihuahua, but a rabid Mexican river rat. We had a story of a man simply named the Farmer whose property was next to my elementary school. Story was that if you went on his property, he'd pull you into his house, which was entirely grey and barren, with nails poking out everywhere. He would get so mad about your trespassing that he would, and get this, call your parents and get you into trouble. Ha ha ha. Kids are funny, especially because the story escalated dramatically from there. If he caught you a second time, he would pull you into his house and kill you, never to be found again. Just 0 to 60 on that one. As an adult, I think this is the funniest thing ever, but as a kid it was taken as gospel. You can imagine my pure terror when I actually saw the Farmer while I was walking home late from school one day with a friend. He was hammering a "No Trespassing" sign into his yard and hissed, "What are you kids doing?" And we shakily replied, "Walking home from school," to which he retorted, "Well, don't come on my property." We ran the rest of the way home, and that single interaction probably gave another 5 years of legitimacy to the legend. There's a semi-rural town about 40 minutes from where I live, and it has open farmlands at the top of town, and cold rainforest valleys in the bottom of town. The rainforest areas are scattered with old brick railway tunnels for the coal trains back in the day, and many of them have caved in at one end. The tunnels are full of glow worms, and are incredibly beautiful to walk into at night, with ceilings of bright blue sparkles. One night my new boyfriend and I were drinking at his place with another couple, and I came up with the idea of exploring the glow tunnels together, since I'd never been. We set off as a group of 4 and walked through the rainforest and through the shorter, open tunnels with not many worms, and even with only a few worms, it was magical. Boyfriend said that the closed tunnels were best for glow worms, so we went to find one. We'd walked about 5 minutes into a tunnel that had caved at one end, and it had a shallow stream of water pooled in the bottom of it. At first there had only been a smattering of the little glowy dudes, but here it looked incredible, like a scene from Harry Potter. We're standing there, staring in wonder, when my boyfriend decides to ruin the moment by saying that apparently a little girl had paddled her canoe along the stream and into the tunnel, when flash floods had suddenly drowned her. They retrieved the canoe but not the girl. After a beat of silence, the rest of us sort of nervously laughed, and then suddenly a freaking rock the size of my fist lobs out of the dark from the closed end of the tunnel, landing in the water at our feet. Running in the dark, through ankle-deep water, on sludgy rocks, is like running in a nightmare. Frick the closed tunnels. There was this story a friend of mine told me back in middle school. He told me it happened to his babysitter, but I highly doubt it. One night during a snowy winter, his babysitter was looking after some kids while the parents went out. It was getting late, so the babysitter put the kids off to bed. Soon as the kids were asleep, she went to the living room to kick back on the lazy boy and pass the time watching TV. While watching TV, she noticed something. She looks over to the slide door that leads to the backyard and sees what looks to be the top half of a person. She tries to keep calm and reaches for her phone. She pretends to be having a conversation with a friend, but actually she's talking to the police. The cops get there and they have a look around the backyard. They find no signs that anyone was there. There were no footprints in the snow or anything. They tell her to keep the doors locked and to call back if anything happens. An hour goes by and she convinces herself she was just tired and seeing things that weren't there. She glances back at the slide door and sees the same thing again. It's a person, but only their top half. She quickly runs upstairs to the kids' room and locks herself up there with them. She calls the cops yet again, and yet again the cops find no signs of any intruder. The cops leave and she decides to stay locked up in the kids' room till the parents come back. Several months later, she gets a call from the parents letting her know they are moving and if she would be interested in a few things to lighten their load for the move. She said sure, of course, and went right over to the house. As she went through the living room, she noticed the lazy boy she had sat in many times. She asked if they were taking it with them. They said it's hers if she wants it. She starts moving it, and while moving it she notices something. On the back of the lazy boy someone had written with marker or something, and it said, "I was behind you." We had one, in the south, growing up in a city small enough to have cow fields within 30-minute drive, that circulated among stoners at my high school. Asshole friends would save it and tell it to each other while tripping. So, a bunch of kids go out to pick shrooms in like, the 70s or 80s or something. Landowners in our area are known to fire warning shots at trespassers if they catch you out in the fields. Early dawn, best time, the kids hear a warning shot and skedaddle. After looking at their poultry haul, they decide to hit another cattle-horse pasture up the road. They park inconspicuously, according to teenager logic, hop a fence and start hunting again. They are about 15 minutes in and they hear another warning shot. Then another. Spooked, they go home for the day. According to the legend, none of the shots were actually aimed at the kids. Two neighbors were having an affair, and a husband found out. Early morning, while everyone was asleep, he went to the other guy's house, broke in and shot him point blank. Then he went home and shot his wife, then himself. Now the ghosts of both adulterers walk between the two houses, across the fields looking for but never finding each other. The guy's ghost haunts the woods in between, trying to keep them apart. Not knowing which field was haunted, you could freak out pretty much anyone. And when you're on edge waiting for a real warning shot, a twig snapping behind you or even a cow taking an extra heavy step made you jump. Far enough gone and back at the house, if you were a truly diabolical asshole, you could convince a tripper that they actually never left the field and were still lying in the cold grass out there exposed to the ghosts.